Hey guys, welcome back to Ranger Survival and Fieldcraft. I'm Andrew, and what I have for you today is more of a discussion video talking about 20 of the smaller survival kit items that I've either incorporated into my kit myself or picked up through field time and training that are going to be small enough to go into containers like our survival tin or a pouch or a bag that we can carry with us. Things that are small, easy to transport, that are going to, one, accomplish their primary purpose, whatever that be, firecraft or improvisation, clothing repair, whatever. And then two, things that are still multifunctional in that we can use them for other purposes or other survival priorities. Whether it's fire, water, food, shelter, land navigation, medical aid, or signaling, we can use them for a variety of purposes. They may be one-shot items, meaning we fire and forget, but there's still items we can use for different purposes, whatever the situation calls for. And these items are also great because not only are they good for wilderness survival, but we can also use them in urban settings or simply take them out with us in a pouch while we're hunting. So we're going to talk about these items, take a look, get some ideas, and then things that you could probably add to your own kit. Stand by. All right, so before we get started, let's talk about the origin or the thought process behind smaller survival kit items. These are smaller items that were on a packing list labeled as survival items for specific training. But you'll notice all of these items meet the requirements that we laid out at the beginning of the video. One, they're going to accomplish their primary purpose, things like Band-Aids. They have a primary purpose with wound care. Two, they can move or cut across different survival priorities. Everything from clothing repair with these safety pins to possible food procurement in the form of fish hooks. But they're also small enough to where we can package even wire like this up into a small survival tin or pouch or bag to carry with us. So these are the items that represent the initial start of that survival kit from military training, but then give us the characteristics to go after those other smaller items to incorporate into our survival kit that we can do so on our own without anyone telling us to. So this is what we're looking for. All right, so let's dive into all these items and kind of talk about them briefly. Part of that original kit was wire. We used wire for snares, for repair, for crafting different tools, even making snare poles and going after game in the field. This is 22 gauge brass wire, 20 gauge steel wire, then this is 30-pound tensile strength picture hanging wire, which I really like. But one thing I've been fooling around with lately is 20-pound tensile strength picture hanging wire that is plastic. This is relatively thick, but it still forms nooses and could be beneficial because it doesn't have much color. It's not going to reflect the sun's rays. It's also somewhat odorless, and we can use this to create simple snares. Here I have just a basic snare using poacher's knots to collapse the noose and lock it in place, but also a poacher knot up top that will bite around an anchor point, and then we can set this like a drag snare along a game run or trail to go after smaller game. So there's one item that's small that can go in our kit that I've been fooling around with lately to replace that wire, but still give us snares that's lighter weight and has a few more benefits with just limited disadvantages as part of our kit. All right, next for those safety pins. We can use safety pins for clothing repair. Obviously, we can use them for fishing hooks as well. We can actually get 2 fishing hooks out of these larger safety pins. And I've got 2 that I made right here in this medicine bottle. One uses the eyelet at the bottom of the actual safety pin to create the main hook. So it looks something like that. And then the other one uses the top portion of the safety pin as another eyelet for a hook. And so safety pins are awesome things to have. We can place these in our clothing very easily, put them in our cap or down on our pant leg, and just use them for clothing repair as we need to, which I've done before because I've had a lot of clothing tear and rip out in the field. We can also use them for improvisation, making fish hooks, combined with some of the guts from our 550 cord from our shoelaces to actually go after fish and give ourselves a meal. So ideas right there. All right, so the next item is aluminum foil. As part of that original kit, we had as much aluminum foil as we could possibly need. Recommend carrying at least 2 feet by 1 foot section of aluminum foil because with that, we not only can signal rescue by reflecting the sun's rays, we can put a boot print on this aluminum foil to leave a track behind for somebody to follow if we need to, or we can use this to cook food, which was the primary use with our aluminum foil, was to cook food and keep all the juices in so we get all the nutrients. But we can also make a cup with this aluminum foil to boil water over a fire to make it safe to drink. Here's an old cup that's made out of aluminum foil from a previous video. As you can see, we can open it up, put the water inside, place this in a fire, supporting it up, and then boil that water inside this makeshift cup to make it safe to drink. Just another alternate container that we can use for a small survival kit. All right, so as part of that original kit as well, we have duct tape. A million uses with duct tape. There's nothing that we can't think up that duct tape can't accomplish. But we have just a small hank of about 3 feet of duct tape. Can fit flat right in a survival tin. We can use this for improvisation, making different tools, or recreating Band-Aids when we run out of ours. Or we can use this as a flame extender to get a fire going. A lot of uses with duct tape. All right, next, Band-Aids is part of a smaller kit. These things are the unsung hero of a lot of smaller survival kits because in a real situation, without gloves protecting our hands, or if we're in a certain area, we could get a lot of different cuts and abrasions, lacerations, whatever to our hands. If you notice, a lot of my left hand, there are cuts over there from using a knife. We could even cut ourselves using our survival knife in a survival situation, or even using something like a razor that we'd have to grip up on and have our fingers very close to that cutting edge if we didn't have a makeshift handle. But with these, my favorite kind of Band-Aids are going to be the NexCare with the rubber coating on the outside. These things are waterproof and not as breathable, but they will stay on for a long, long time on those smaller cuts and things we get on our hands. I wish you would have had these at certain other trainings when it's very cold outside and your skin starts to crack along the fingers because you're constantly using your hands in and out of your rucksack. But these are going to be the best, the ones that I would recommend. Waterproof, will last through everything, and then we can even replace them after they've gone through their use. Get rid of these and use the new ones. And even with this outer coating, they're somewhat flammable, so we can use those as additional tinder to get a fire going. And that last item from that main kit is just razor blades. A lot of things you can do with a razor blade. It's just another cutting tool to have as part of your kit. I prefer surgical razor blades that are relatively large. That way we can get a handhold on them, so these aren't too small, but they're not too large as well, which will fit in a kit. These are nice, good to go. We can use these to process food, process materials, attempt to carve. We can make a makeshift handle for this so we can hopefully spare our hands any cuts or lacerations so we're not using up all our Band-Aids. But then we can use this for improvisation as well. Even things like those small razor blades as part of shaving kits for that old school kit. These things are flexible, so we can hide them in our clothing and not worry about them puncturing our clothing. But we can also use these for improvisation. We can actually heat this thing up until it turns blue and then hook it up with wire, with a couple of pins, some graphite pencil, and then maybe some sort of headphone and actually make a foxhole radio to listen to the airwaves that are being transmitted in our survival situation. Just something good to know if we had all the ingredients to actually make that. But we have different razor blades. They're going to be good for survival. All right, so those were the 6 original items. Now let's take a look at the stuff that I've added over the years, either picked up from somebody else or that I carry. I test out on video for you guys, or I carry myself and test while I'm in a field environment. Now, one of the first things is going to be just a little packet of white petroleum jelly. Primary purpose is as a flame extender combined with some sort of tinder material, whether that be natural material or other materials, man-made tinders, whatever it is, cotton balls and Vaseline. That's all it basically is. But with this white petroleum jelly, we can use this as an alternate purpose for skincare, whether it's going to be on chapped lips, or more likely, we're going to use this, pull this out in a hot weather environment or in a swamp environment. And if we have crotch rot or heat rash down there in the nether regions, we can actually use this to help lubricate until we can get to a point where we can actually take care of ourselves, clean the area, try to get it dried out, but we can still use more of this to help protect that area so we can keep moving through the jungle. Just another use for petroleum jelly. All right, next, floss. Floss has a lot of uses, primarily oral hygiene, of course, but we can open this up, actually take out the floss, ditch the container, throw it in the fire, and that floss roll will fit nicely into our kit, but we can use this combined with things like sewing needles to sew up and repair clothing. We can use it for suturing. We can also use it with these little magnets that we have here to suspend and give us an improvisational compass, north-south line, so we can do a little bit of land navigation. So a lot of good uses for floss. All right, speaking of needles, we've got needles. One thing that should always go in our kit is needles. I've been in a lot of situations where I've had to repair my own clothing and sew it up. And without a needle, it's going to be next to impossible. You're going to be trying to fashion needles out of your safety pins or just using the safety pins themselves to repair your clothing, but it's not going to last very long with just safety pins. So knowing how to sew is a very valuable skill that I've learned the hard way over many years. So having needles as part of a kit, small, easy to conceal, place in that survival tin, help us repair clothing, and all we have to have is some sort of thread like floss or even thread wrapped around just a simple sewing bobbin to repair our clothing so we can maintain that clothing and protect ourselves from what's around us. Speaking of sewing bobbins, these are things that I've added to the kit recently. They hold a lot of line or thread. Here we've got fishing line, and then on this side we've got thread for our sewing kit. These things are too easy to wrap around these small metal sewing bobbins. Throw in the kit and we have a lot of line and thread right here, all that we're ever going to need for improvisation, going after fish or making smaller tools or fixing our clothing, whatever it is. We can fit it on these little bobbins, which is why I've incorporated them into the kit. All right, I hit it just a moment ago, but these magnets, these small magnets, will work all the time to give us just a basic north-south line. We just take a piece of thread or we take a little bit of floss, put it in between these cylinder type magnets where they clip together, and then we just suspend these and they will orient on the north-south line. And then we just use the vegetation and clues around us as well as the sun to discern which is south, which is north, and then we can finally discern east and west and move out appropriately using these. These are going to be a little bit better as compared to a button compass. So we have the magnets, but now we have a button compass. This button compass is actually reversed. Although it is small, I'm including it as part of the kit because this will give us a direction a lot faster than these magnets will, but the magnets will never fail. This button compass will fail because it's actually pointing opposite directions right now. But a button compass small enough to go in our kit to give us a fast reading. We just need to make sure that button compass actually works and it's not messed up. Another metal tool that we can have is nails. Small nails or 16-penny nails like these make great tools. We can make improvisational awls out of a nail just like this one. We can actually punch through not only natural materials like wood, but we can go through metal as well with this. It also makes a nice defensive weapon, of course, a little poker. But we can use this for traps as well, like spin traps or deadfalls, to ensure we actually pierce and kill that game that gets caught in that trap. A lot of different uses for nails that we can come up with. Good improvisational tool, very lightweight and fit in a small kit. Now with those tools, something that I've always hung on to because there's a variety of uses, and it doesn't have to be just necessarily grenade pin key rings here. We could use just basic key rings as well, but these key rings are great not only for survival. We can use these with wire saws to create just simple handhold toggles like this to saw with that wire saw, but they also go really well on the ends of actual saw blades. So if we just carry a basic saw blade into the woods and these key rings, we can craft the rest of the saw, the buck saw frame itself, using natural materials and cordage, and then just secure the eyelets with these key rings as opposed to making small wooden pegs. Those small wooden pegs can break over time. Key rings are going to fit in there a lot easier. Plus, these are all over the place sometimes, or you can just get key rings and keep it as part of your kit. You can use it for other uses as well, collecting different metal items, keeping it all on a key ring, or putting snares and making a gamekeeper out of cordage, whatever you want. But key rings are smaller items that are inconspicuous that can go inside of our kit fairly easily that give us a lot of different uses. All right, speaking of a lot of uses, we have cordage. This is type 1 paracord. Type 1 paracord is only going to have the sheath and then one inner strand. It's about 100-pound tensile strength. A lot smaller than typical paracord, but still will accomplish a lot of the same jobs. Plus, this material is a lot better for snares. Even after you gut it, it's going to be better cordage for making snares as opposed to normal 550. But this is smaller. It meets a lot of requirements, multifunctional, and it'll fit in our kit. Other items that may not be as multifunctional but still have a lot of uses that we can incorporate into our kit is just rubber bands. We can use these for daily routine skills, I guess. But in a survival kit, primarily, this is going to be to create a slingshot. Notice these are thick and strong rubber bands. They're not cheap little rubber bands. These are going to be the big kind that we could fashion into a slingshot if we had to, or use this as a trap engine with like a small rat trap. I've shown that before on my videos. But we can also use it combined with a makeshift container like an oven bag to keep that oven bag closed as we collect water in it to take back to our camp. So we have rubber bands, and then we have just a small oven bag that you can pick up at any grocery store. I forget the exact volume of this bag, but we can pick this up. It's very flat, lightweight, folds up very easily to fit inside of our kit. And we can use this to actually collect a lot of water, take it back to our camp, line this bag somehow, either with a jacket or a piece of cloth, or we could even create just a simple shallow hole in the earth, pile debris in there like leaves or grass, set this in there to help cushion it and protect the container while we find a way to treat that water inside. So a good way to collect a lot of water very quickly. Either we use this and our tin foil, treat that water by placing it over a fire to make it safe to drink, or we find another way with all the water in here to help treat it, or if worse comes to worse, we just drink the water in the bag and then we still wait for rescue. Better to be found sick and alive than dead from dehydration. So we got that oven bag. Now with those containers, one thing that's kind of fallen out of style that used to be part of a lot of different military kits was just condoms. Condoms to be improvisational small rubber containers that we can fill with water. The only problem with these is that you have to have some sort of water flow going into the condom to actually expand that condom because of the rubber material, the latex. It's just not going to fill up no matter how much we try to scoop water into it. We need some sort of force with that water to actually expand that condom to make it into a balloon shape. It'll fit a lot of water, approximately 1 quart, but after we have it filled, it's also very fragile and very vulnerable. So we need to cover this with some sort of clothing like a sock or a bandana, or find some way to suspend this safely above the Earth's surface and use it only when necessary, drinking water from it after we treat it. And we also want to make sure that these are non-lubricated, non-spermicidal. Okay, nice tip for you there. And speaking of things that go below the belt, a smaller item that we can carry as part of our kit, feminine hygiene product, is the tampon. This is the tampon of the applicator, I'm told. And we can just take out the actual tampon itself and use this for fire combined with our petroleum jelly, giving us a flame extender or long-lasting tinder to get that fire going. But then with this, it's very small, but it opens up into a large piece of cotton. This looks like it's 2-ply here, 3-ply. But we can use this cotton, take some out for tinder, but then keep the rest if we're in an area where we need to get water, an arid region. We can actually use this to help soak up water that may be left in rocks or small pools. Use that, squeeze it into a container, and that's how we get water that's in a shallow pool that we want to save for later and actually treat with fire to make it safe to drink. So just other uses with this cotton as well. Also doubles for wounds. We can take this tampon and actually insert it into a wound to help control the bleeding as best as possible. Apply this, apply manual pressure, and then try to stop the bleeding combined with elevation to save that person's life, or at least stop that bleeding and prevent that person from bleeding out, or at least contain that injury long enough for rescue. And speaking of injury, there are a couple of different items that I like to carry that are really small and offer multifunctional uses. And speaking of hygiene products, speaking of things for wound care, we have some things that are smaller that we can carry with us that are not only for wound care, but for other uses as well. This is going to be isopropyl alcohol pads, or just alcohol prep pads. With these prep pads, we can use them for external wound treatment, cleaning the wound and sterilizing the area, but we can also use these as fire starters. Keep it on the actual inside of the packaging that it comes in like this, and we can use this combined with some sort of sparking source to actually ignite the alcohol, creating a small, short burst of flame to get a fire going in an emergency. All right, something that I found recently that I started adding to a lot of my kits are these little Purell hand sanitizer packets, that gel that you can get out of those dispensers just about anywhere in any medical office or doctor's office. These things are great because we can just simply flip it over you just open it up by grabbing the two ends, squeezing, and then pushing these together. There'll be a cut right back here where you can actually squeeze out that hand sanitizer all over potentially makeshift or tinder that we carry with us, like this tampon. Use it as material that will light very easily with a sparking source, and then we can use this combined with that cotton material or any tinder to get a fire going. Plus, these are also great for field hygiene in an emergency. Their first purpose would be to start a fire or get a fire going, but if we already have a fire and we're worried about staying clean in the field, we can use these to actually help clean our hands. Let's say we're taking care of ourselves and utilizing the wood line, going to the bathroom, and we want to have clean hands prior to eating or consuming food. We can use these to help stay clean and prevent disease, which in a long-term survival situation could be a real risk. All right, and that is everything. All right, guys, that does it for this video. Just a down and dirty video, a discussion today on 20 of these smaller items. Hopefully this gave you some good ideas for things you can throw in your own kit. These things are easy to transport, easy to use, fire and forget mostly, that will actually work for us in any situation. So I hope you liked this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button down below. Leave me a comment in the comment section. I always appreciate you guys' feedback. I want to thank you guys for what you do for me, for this channel, for your likes, your views, your subscriptions, your comments, your feedback, and your shares. And I'll be back with another video as soon as I can, guys. Thanks.